So let's talk about the Great Bank Robbery of 1908.
Great. To lead in, let me talk about the two men who were associated with the First National Bank of Monrovia, where that robbery took place for a number of years. The first was John Henry Bartle, born in Eagle Harbor, Michigan, July 22nd, 1855. He was roughly a contemporary of his longtime business associate and a friend, William Albert Chist, who was also born in Michigan 2 years earlier in 1853 near Brownsville, which sounds like a rural farming community. I haven't looked up Eagle Harbor, but the harbor would suggest it might have been one on one of the Great Lakes, and maybe it was a trading area. John's father was also John, and his mother was the former Teresa Reynolds. John Bartle received his elementary school education, probably to the grade 8, and then he went to work, but continued his education and took night school classes until he completed his education. As a young man, he relocated to Port Arthur, Canada, and he established a dry goods business. What were dry goods? Well, anything that wasn't wet goods. I mean, not groceries, but dry goods such as material. I don't know if you carried shoes, but it was, the type of thing you'd find in a notions shop. He learned, interesting factoid, John Bartle learned to speak Chippewa because a number of his clients at the store were Chippewas, and he wanted to be able to converse with them in their own language. He married Amelia Bowerman. Stephen and Annie Bowerman were Canadians. They had 4 children, not necessarily in birth order. Amelia, Elma, Gertrude, no, that's not right. Elma, Gertrude, Addie, and who was number 4? Jenny, plus 2 sons, Clarence and Kenneth. The senior Bowermans came to Southern California in 1885 for Mrs. Bowerman's health, and they settled in Duarte because there was no Monrovia. In fact, Stephen Bowerman told how when Monrovia was established in 1886, William Monroe came and knocked on his door and said, "Stephen, I'd like you to come up to Monrovia." And Bowerman's response was, "Monrovia? Where's that?" He said, "Well, it's a new town we're starting. We'd like you to come live there." And so they did. All of the 6 Bowerman children did come eventually to Southern California. Amelia did not come right away because she married John Bartle in August of 1885, back in Canada. The Bowermans spent the winter of 1886 in Southern California, probably Southern California because Amelia's parents were here already. They may have had a place to stay. They at least had a landing place when they got to Southern California. The story is that they looked around all of Southern California but decided that Monrovia was the place they wanted to live. So they went back to Port Arthur. January of 1887, John Bartle sold his business and off they came to Southern California and Monrovia. Now the story in one of his biographies is that he came to California with $30,000 as a result of the sale of his business, all of which he proudly earned himself. So he was highly motivated and a very good merchant. He began his career in banking with the First National Bank of Monrovia on April 13th, 1888. Friday the 13th, as a matter of fact, but this was not an ill omen, this was a very good omen. In the course of working for the First National, he established a close business relationship as well as a close friendship with Joseph F. Sartori, who'd started his banking career with the First National Bank of Monrovia prior to moving to Los Angeles in 1889. But Sartori and Bartle remained in contact and served on each other's boards of directors or as stockholders in each other's businesses for the remainder of their lives. John Bartle was promoted to, he started as a bookkeeper in January 8th of 1889. Less than a year later, he was promoted to assistant cashier. 2 years later, he was appointed cashier, and in 1894, became president of the First National Bank of Monrovia. He maintained that position for 30 years until the First National Bank of Monrovia merged with the Security Trust and Savings Bank of Los Angeles, which was Sartori's bank. As Charlie Davis said, when it came time for a merger, it was natural because of the strong business relationship between the two bankers that the First National would become part of Security Trust and Savings Bank. From his marriage to Amelia Bowerman, John Bartle had a daughter, Kathleen, and a son, Gerald, both born in Monrovia. He had a son, Stanley, who was from apparently John's first marriage. Stanley was in Monrovia in the early 1900s, apparently was in somewhat frail health and died as a young man. In terms of John Bartle's community involvement, he served as the Monrovia City Treasurer between 1890 and 1894. Because this was the aftermath of the collapse of the Great Land Boom, not that John Bartle received a huge salary as treasurer, but he returned it to he served without pay. I mean, he was paid, but he returned it to the city coffers. He was elected to the Board of Trustees, or the City Council in 1900. And he lived in several houses. You'll see a pattern here. He lived in the Jefferson Patton House, which was Monrovia's first two-story brick house at the northwest corner of White Oak, or Foothill, and Magnolia. He lived in the A.G. Miller House, which was immediately to the east. No, I take that back. 302, 347. Immediately to the one block west of the Patton House. Lived in the Cyrus Campbell House at 206 South Heliotrope in the Pacific View Tract. He lived in the Pyle House, Idlewild. He lived in a great a great craftsman-style house on Highland Place. Remember Highland Place? And then in 1920, he purchased from Julia Bandhold a house at 701 East Foothill, or East White Oak, that Julia and her husband John had built about 1907 or 8. They called it Boulder Grange. Was Boulder Grange their house in Glendora? Anyway, the Bandhold house was built with very large granite rocks. In fact, the chimney is supposedly the largest fireplace and chimney in Southern California. It's on the northeast corner of Foothill and Shamrock. And it's a 2-story plus chimney, freestanding chimney, flared out at the bottom. So it has innumerable round granite boulders, probably taken from the wash of the San Gabriel that were used in construction. In the legacy collection is a check for $9,500, which was the balance of the escrow on the Bandhold house in 1920. There's the actual check has been scanned and is visible in the legacy project. I think the purchase price might have been $10,000, so I think there was one $500 check, which was probably a deposit in the escrow, and then the $9,500 check payable to Julia Bandhold, balance of it. John Bartle died in his home January 27th, 1932, and the house passed to his daughter Kathleen, who made it her home until her own death in 1968. So that's John Bartle, John Henry Bartle.